This video is brought to you by Verb Energy. Follow the first link in the description to get 60% off your purchase of a Verb Bar starter kit, including their new cinnamon roll flavor. Ooh! Over the course of its life cycle, my feelings toward Destiny 2 have changed multiple times. I've loved it at times, I have hated it at times, and I've felt rather indifferent towards it sometimes. I don't consider myself to be a Destiny channel anymore, but I know a good portion of my subscriber base was built on this game. It's been a while since I've made a Destiny video though, and in that amount of time a lot has happened. Bungie has been in the news for both good and bad reasons lately, as per usual, so I'm going to give my thoughts on the topics most interesting to me, those of which are sectioned out and timestamped in the description. I've definitely been one to call out Bungie on their crap in the past, and while I don't approve of everything they're doing, I think Destiny 2 is in a really good place right now. And if you haven't touched the game in a while, I think now is a great time to hop back in. And here's why. Destiny 2 is currently on Season of the Lost, the final chapter before the Witch Queen arrives in February of next year. Maybe I've just softened up over the years, but I think this season is great. I think the season before this was really good as well. I know, crazy. Bungie has really struggled to make seasonal content good in the past. They've experimented with multiple different models over the years, and it seems to me like they finally figured it out. Destiny 1 and 2 both went with a standard DLC expansion pack approach. Destiny 1 had the Dark Below and the House of Wolves, and Destiny 2 had the Curse of Osiris and Warmind. Now, a lot of people didn't like these simply because the content itself wasn't that great. But in my opinion, the main issue with this approach is that players were able to blast through all the content in about a day, making these expansions unable to sustain players' attention for any considerable amount of time. Seasonal content works differently. Now all players progress through the main questline simultaneously. This keeps the player base together and allows the narrative to unfold naturally over time, making Destiny feel more like a real and living universe. The dedicated and sweaty Destiny fans still have their freedom to grind power levels insanely high right away, but every player experiences the main story at the same time now. Doing it this way also allows the season to live and evolve over the course of several months. Bungie has tried to add seasonal live updates in the past, most notably right after the Taken King, but these events like the Dawning, SRL, Crimson Days, the April update, etc. were all severely lacking in substantial content. This resulted in big content droughts and gave players little to no reason to play in between Destiny's main yearly content drops. These days, seasons are still repetitive, as is all of Destiny, but the content here is substantial enough to keep people playing year-round. It's supplemental to the previously mentioned holiday events. At the same time, Bungie did delay the Witch Queen, so hopefully this approach is sustainable and realistic from a development perspective. Bungie also recently came out with a super long post regarding balancing changes to a number of weapons, abilities, and gear pieces. I'm not going to get into the specifics here, but it seems as though Bungie is finally balancing PvP and PvE separately, which is something many players, myself included, have wanted them to do for years now. As fun as the Crucible can be at times, its integration has hurt the PvE experience in numerous ways, and we've been able to see other games, such as Outriders, release with incredibly creative mods and abilities because they don't have a PvP aspect in their game holding them back. The update that's coming to Destiny 2 will certainly have a few issues of its own that Bungie will need to refine over time, but I for one am really pleased to see them open to balancing the game in this more specific way. Many of the changes they're making are directed at one specific ability in a specific scenario, which is hopefully going to decrease the chances of that change having ripple effects on other areas of the game. For example, a popular cheesy strategy in Trials of Osiris right now is purposefully leaving one player on the opposing team alive to gain more super energy per round, essentially. I don't play Trials, this is just what I hear the kids are doing these days, and everybody knows if you have super energy, you have a big advantage. Even if you're me, who whiffs half his golden gun shots, and Bungie has stated they want more PvP gunplay and fewer super versus super chaos encounters in general, instead of drastically decreasing the rate of super energy regen in general, which would affect the PvE modes. Bungie is going in and changing how players regenerate their super altogether. Now players will gain super energy when giving or receiving damage. There won't be much passive regen anymore, and this change is only present in PvP game modes like Trials of Osiris. In the past, if there was some ability that was super powerful in the Crucible, Bungie would just nerf it into the ground. Rest in peace my hand cannons. And while this made it less broken in the Crucible, that ability was also no longer viable or fun to use in strikes and raids. And the opposite was also true, making something really powerful and fun in PvE activities always came at the expense of the poor Crucible experience. Over the last year or so, Bungie has ramped up the enemy density and created weapons and abilities that make you feel insanely powerful, which has been awesome. But at the same time, the Crucible, which was always supposed to be a pillar of the overall Destiny experience, has been a total mess. I don't have a ton to say about this because we won't know how it's going to work until it actually comes out, but in concept, this is a very good thing for the game. It's going to be hard to do, but if we could have PvE where it is and simultaneously have a mostly balanced Crucible experience, mostly balanced in Destiny terms, that would be incredible. And in my opinion, hitting these issues head on, balancing the game modes separately, is the only way to get this done, even if it ends up making the game more complicated as a result. Speaking of making things more complicated, Bungie is also going to revamp all of the light subclasses in the future. To my understanding, the subclasses are going to be more similar to Stasis, which is more in-depth with different aspects and fragments and whatnot. I don't have a lot to say about this, if I'm being totally honest. It's another one of those things that's hard to have an opinion on until it actually becomes a thing. But if this means we can further customize our subclasses to create more unique builds, then I'm all for it. I for one still miss how subclasses worked in Destiny 1. I'd rather pick individual perks than have Bungie create little skill tree branches for me. But maybe that's just me. With that out of the way, it's now time to get to the more controversial topics. Oh boy. By now you all probably know Bungie is removing content from Destiny 2 yet again. They started vaulting content, as Bungie calls it, last year alongside the release of Beyond Light to keep the overall experience coherent and keep the file size of the game down. And as you could expect, many players didn't like this. I love the Destiny community. I am one of them. I am one of you. But no matter how good the game is, they will always find something wrong with it. This time around, the most noteworthy piece of content Bungie's removing from the game is Forsaken. Not all of Forsaken will be moved to the content vault, but the Forsaken campaign and the Tangled Shore location will no longer be accessible. Now, I understand why people don't like this. I understood it last year, and I still get it this second time around. And if you guys remember, I was on the side of the community last year because I felt like Beyond Light was a little lacking in content. You could definitely feel like there was stuff missing last year, and Bungie didn't fill the void, so to speak. But I gotta be honest, I actually side with Bungie on the idea of having a content vault. Don't kill me, please. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here in this situation. You don't have to agree with me, but I hope after listening you'll see this situation from a different perspective. I've said before in previous videos, I work on video games. YouTube is just a hobby of mine. My real job is working for Epic. Full disclosure here. I have a water bottle to prove it. And there are a lot of things that go into making video games that the average person just doesn't understand. I'm not saying that to be prideful and make myself sound super awesome, but game development is a lot harder than it looks. I don't work for Bungie, but I can say with absolute certainty that every developer working there would love it if they could keep every piece of content in the game accessible forever. People in the community are mad because they bought this content and now it's going away. Do you think the people that spent hundreds of hours making that content would want to see it become unplayable? Absolutely not. But when you're making video games, there are a ton of practical and technical limitations. Practically speaking, if you kept every location, the navigation screen would become an absolute mess. It would be incredibly confusing for new players, not to mention the continuity of missions would get thrown off, especially since Cade is dead and the Destiny universe has just changed so much over the years story-wise. I would assume Sony and Microsoft would not be happy with Bungie putting a 200 plus gigabyte game on their store, especially on last generation consoles considering their smaller storage capacity. A game that big would not only take much longer to update on the side of the consumer, but it would also probably slow down the process of development in so many ways. You have to consider Bungie is updating and supporting Destiny 2 for the long haul. Last year the content vault sucked, but Bungie is thinking long term here. They have the Witch Queen this year, another expansion the year after, and so on for the rest of time. If they didn't start doing this and Destiny 2 continues on for another 5 or more years, then this game will literally become a terabyte. It's just not sustainable on a technical level. I understand why people are upset over this, but it's not like Bungie is trying to screw people over. Most things we buy are consumable in a way. If we go to a restaurant and pay for a meal after we eat it, it's gone. If we see a movie in the theater, once we leave, we can't go back in and see it again. The phones we buy will one day stop working and become outdated. People seem to have this sense of permanent ownership over video games. I played through Forsaken. I got my money out of it by having that experience. If it goes away, but I get a bunch of new, cool, substantial stuff to play instead, then I'm good. I don't feel a need to go back to that old stuff. And it's not like Bungie could never bring that location back in the future. It didn't get permanently deleted. It just doesn't make sense to include for this upcoming year of new Destiny 2 content. They want the content in the game to feel relevant. Now, I know you're all probably thinking I've become so laid back and chill when it comes to Destiny 2. I'm sure it pains all of you. But rest assured, there are still times where the line is drawn, and Bungie has drawn it twice, actually. These two things go hand in hand, so I'm gonna lump them together in a little Destiny 2 crap sandwich. In between Season of the Lost and the Witch Queen, Bungie is coming out with a 30th anniversary pack that includes a dungeon, as well as some new weapons and gear, including the almighty Galahorn. On the surface, this is pretty cool, but Bungie is charging $25 for it. Bungie is also making certain content part of the Witch Queen exclusive to the Deluxe Edition. They are included in the Standard Edition or even the Season Pass. So if you want to play the new dungeons available in 2022, you'll have to pay $80 for the Witch Queen instead of the usual $40, and I have some major problems with this. When Bungie separated from Activision, people thought the game would become more user-friendly in terms of its business approaches. These two things they're doing this year are walking a very fine line. The Bungie Anniversary Pack should really be free for all players. It's mostly filled with cosmetics for one thing, but even still, this is supposed to be a celebration. Bungie should feel proud of themselves for the work they've done, but the players are a huge part of their success and should really be included in this. Making them pay $25 for essentially one dungeon and an iconic weapon that you know darn well everybody frickin' wants is greedy. The same can be said about the two new dungeons. Making them exclusive to the Deluxe Edition only, like, that's no bueno. For starters, this makes Bungie look really bad, because Halo, the franchise that got them to where they are, has free multiplayer. Outriders, a game similar to Destiny, just came out with a transmog system, new weapons, 4 new expedition missions, and more for free. Outriders also has no microtransactions anywhere. Destiny 2 is theoretically free to play, but it has the Eververse store and charges people like $80 per year to keep up with the content. This is a problem and is something that Bungie should care about. The number one reason, by far, why people stop playing Destiny is because it's too expensive to keep up with, especially when compared to other free-to-play games. I know people who love the gameplay of Destiny, but don't get super deep into it because Bungie is constantly asking for more money. When your friends stop playing Destiny, the whole game becomes less fun. There are simply too many activities in Destiny splitting up the community. You have people who can't play the newest seasonal content, you have people that can't do the dungeon in the anniversary pack, you have people that can't access the Witch Queen, you have people that can't play the new dungeons in the Witch Queen even though they bought the Witch Queen. Splitting up the player base with so many paywalls will ruin this game if they don't cut this out. Destiny is a game that thrives on cooperative play and playing with your friends, and they are implementing greedy systems that are actively making it harder and harder to play with your friends. If they didn't have the Eververse store to support themselves, then maybe this would be okay, but this is a very slippery slope. Now, even with all that being said, Destiny 2 is in a very good place right now in terms of the quality and frequency of its content, as well as the core gameplay loop. If you haven't played the game in a while, I think now is a great time to hop back in and see if you like it. The Witch Queen is an expansion I'm pretty excited for, considering the fact that it reminds me of the Taken King, and I freaking love the Taken King. You can buy Season of the Lost for like $10 if you want to catch yourself up on the story and get prepared for Sabbathoon, and if not, there's enough free content available to at least see if Destiny is a game you want to invest in for the next year. If you've always hated Destiny and looter games like it, then you probably won't change your mind at this point. But if you've made it this far in the video, then you're probably considering it, so just download it and see what happens. You'll probably be forking over silver for that dumb exotic emote in no time. But that's all I've got for today. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on the latest Destiny 2 news. If there's something specific you want to see me make a video on, just let me know. If you enjoyed this video, you can let me know by dropping me a like. If you want to see more content from me, make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.